Carl Jung posited that society's most formidable individual is not the lawbreaker, the dissenter, or the protester. It is the person commonly labeled as idle, but who privately holds ambitions capable of changing the world. Jung dedicated decades to observing these individuals and made a discovery that upended everything psychologists thought they knew about human potential. The idle genius seems to accomplish nothing, yet their concepts redefine entire fields. They appear uninspired, but their aspirations are grander than anyone's around them. Today, I will unveil Jung's most debated theory on why these individuals strike fear into everyone around them, yourself included. Because what Jung uncovered was not merely a personality classification. It was proof that our entire framework for understanding success might be fundamentally flawed. By this video's conclusion, you will grasp why the person everyone writes off as idle might actually be functioning at the highest echelon of human consciousness, and why that reality challenges everything society holds true about achievement. Jung's professional work uncovered a troubling pattern that permanently altered his perspective on human accomplishment. He recorded numerous instances of individuals who seemed idle to all observers, yet they possessed insights that rendered him speechless. These were not your typical slackers. They exhibited what I term effortless profundity, the capacity to perceive solutions others overlooked, to comprehend connections others failed to make, and to imagine possibilities others considered unattainable. Yet, they seemed unable to adhere to elementary productivity frameworks. Jung's findings pointed to individuals whose minds were like extensive libraries, while their bodies remained vexingly inert. What I find captivating is how society perceives the inertia and dismisses the library as unread. But that is not the most unsettling aspect. Jung understood these people were not defective or unmotivated. They were tapping into something that the culture of productivity actively quashes in most individuals. The pattern was unwavering across many cases. Brilliant insights combined with seeming passivity, revolutionary concepts paired with a rejection of standard methods of success. And what Jung revealed about their minds will astound you. Here is the intriguing fact Jung brought to light. What we term idle geniuses are actually what Jung classified as visionary creatives, individuals who access what he called autonomous, self-activating processes from the unconscious mind. Jung differentiated between two kinds of creative people: the psychological artist, who creates from personal, conscious experiences, and the visionary artist, who acts as a channel for the collective unconscious. The idle genius belongs to this latter group. They are not consciously producing ideas. They are conduits for them. Jung noted that true creativity does not stem from the conscious self but from the depths of the unconscious. What is perceived as idleness is, in fact, the mind establishing ideal conditions for what Jung termed a spontaneous outpouring of archetypal images and motifs from the collective unconscious. This clarifies why idle geniuses often have their most brilliant ideas during activities others view as unproductive. They are not compelling conscious thought. They are permitting unconscious processes to surface organically, precisely as Jung recorded in his research on visionary creativity. But here is what Jung discovered that productivity advocates do not want you to know, and it becomes even more contentious. Jung saw that idle geniuses demonstrate that a culture of productivity might be not just superfluous but actively detrimental for certain kinds of intelligence. If genuine insights arise from unconscious processing rather than conscious exertion, then everything society teaches about success becomes dubious. The idle genius is living evidence that perhaps the most diligent workers are not the most valuable contributors. This generates what I call productivity anxiety, based on Jung's observations, the disquieting realization that one's perpetual busyness might be less impactful than someone else's apparent stillness. Jung's research indicated that productive people fear the idle genius because he shows that effortless insight can eclipse effortful work. This undermines the entire basis upon which the productive person has constructed their self-worth. But wait, there is something Jung found that is far more unsettling than social apprehension. Jung made a discovery about idle geniuses that so troubled him, he initially delayed its publication. They do not just think in a different way. They access a collective intelligence that others cannot. The method. Here is what I call Jung's 5-minute recognition. Sit in silence without any external input. No phone, no music, no duties. Simply notice what occurs in your mind. The idle genius's response. ideas, solutions, or insights start to surface without prompting. Your mind begins to form connections effortlessly. The productive person's response: anxiety intensifies. You feel an urge to do something. The quiet feels awkward and unproductive. Jung found that idle geniuses show an unusual link to what he labeled the collective unconscious, humanity's shared reservoir of knowledge, patterns, and insights. Jung noted that these individuals seem to download solutions from sources beyond their personal history. What I find extraordinary is how they know things they were never taught, see patterns they never explored, and grasp systems they never examined. But that is not even the most astonishing part of what Jung revealed. If you have ever been called idle despite having significant dreams, write this in the comments. My mind operates differently, and that is my power. Jung identified why society reacts to idle geniuses with such animosity. They embody everything the culture of productivity dreads about human nature. Modern productivity thinking is founded on one core belief: human worth is derived from quantifiable results. The idle genius challenges this entire framework by showing that the most significant contributions often stem from unquantifiable processes. What I term the productivity shadow, drawing from Jung's shadow work, signifies society's unconscious dread that perhaps human value is not determined by how busy someone seems. But here is the surprising insight that alters everything. Jung's most stunning discovery was not merely theoretical. He documented how visionary creatives access what he called primordial images from the collective unconscious, translating universal, transpersonal content into insights that resonate across all of humanity. Jung noted that these individuals function as mediums, channeling archetypal patterns that exist beyond individual experience. This was not mystical conjecture. Jung recorded specific instances where visionary creatives created works with symbols and themes they had never consciously learned, yet which appeared in various cultures throughout history. What I call the primordial download pattern demonstrates how idle geniuses tap into the same archetypal layer that Jung identified in visionary artists. While others operate from personal conscious knowledge, idle geniuses access what Jung called the universal, transpersonal layer of the psyche. Jung saw that this process cannot be compelled through conscious effort. The individual must become what he termed a vessel, creating a space for unconscious content to surface organically. This explains why idle geniuses oppose productivity systems that depend on conscious, ego-driven exertion. And the historical support for this theory will astonish you. Jung found that history's most significant breakthroughs consistently originated from individual society labeled as idle geniuses, people who seemed unproductive but produced world-altering insights. Einstein's idleness. Colleagues criticized Einstein for spending hours daydreaming instead of completing his tasks. His groundbreaking theories came to him during these seemingly unproductive times. Tesla's impracticality. Tesla was seen as idle because he favored mental experimentation over hands-on labor. His visualization methods yielded inventions others could not comprehend. Darwin's delay. Darwin was ridiculed for taking decades to publish his theory of evolution. His apparent procrastination was actually unconscious processing that ensured his ideas were robust enough to withstand criticism. But here is what makes this pattern even more remarkable. Jung documented precisely how this process functions through his theory of creativity as a play instinct. He wrote that the creation of something new is not achieved by the intellect but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. This is the authentic Jungian principle that explains the behavior of idle geniuses. What society sees as idleness is actually what Jung called the play instinct, the mind's innate creative mechanism that functions through fantasy and imagination rather than forced intellectual exertion. Jung's documented process. The conscious mind recedes, permitting unconscious content to emerge. Fantasy and imagination serve as the raw material for creative insights. The individual acts as a translator, converting archetypal images into practical uses. The process seems effortless because it is propelled by an inner need, not external coercion. Jung stressed that this play instinct cannot be scheduled or optimized. It arises from what he called an inner necessity, an autonomous impulse that follows unconscious rhythms, not conscious productivity targets. But the ramifications of Jung's discovery extend far beyond individual success. Comment below if you have felt guilty for not being perpetually productive. I refuse to feign productivity for others. Jung's most groundbreaking insight was that visionary creatives fulfill a crucial evolutionary role for humanity. They safeguard and progress collective intelligence while everyone else is focused on individual productivity. What I call Jung's collective intelligence theory posits that human consciousness is layered, with most people only accessing the surface level of individual thought. Idle geniuses naturally connect to deeper, collective layers where humanity's accumulated wisdom is stored. While productive people operate within established systems, idle geniuses access insights that go beyond current constraints. Their apparent idleness is actually consciousness functioning at a collective rather than an individual level. Building on Jung's work, I believe the idle genius thinks with the mind of humanity, not just their own. Their insights contribute to collective evolution, not personal gain. This is why their ideas often appear impossibly ahead of their time. But there is something even more significant about what Jung discovered. Jung recognized that idle geniuses confront a primary challenge: how to share their insights with a world that insists on constant productivity and performance. What I call the integration paradox, based on Jung's observations, illustrates how idle geniuses must stay connected to unconscious processing while consciously interacting with society. Excessive social interaction can disrupt their unconscious access, but insufficient interaction prevents their insights from being shared. Jung formulated 3 integration strategies. Strategy 1: rhythm protection. Idle geniuses must identify and safeguard their natural energy cycles, even when society pressures them to conform to conventional schedules. Strategy 2: selective collaboration. Instead of attempting to work with everyone, they should find the few individuals who can appreciate and support unconventional methods. Strategy 3: translation skills. They must learn to convert unconscious insights into a language that productive people can comprehend. But Jung found something that makes this integration even more critical. Jung created a thorough framework for identifying idle geniuses that showed why these individuals are so frequently ignored and misconstrued. What I call Jung's internal identification signs. Sign 1: productivity anxiety. Conventional productivity advice causes more stress than it yields results. You feel as if you are working against your own nature when you try to follow standard methods of achievement. Sign 2: insight emergence. Your best ideas arise during activities others see as unproductive. Showering, walking, daydreaming, or simply resting in bed. Sign 3: energy unpredictability. Your productive phases do not align with typical schedules. You might be unproductive at 9 a.m. but brilliant at midnight. Sign 4: confidence without evidence. You believe in ideas others deem unrealistic, not because you can prove them, but because they feel correct at a level beyond logic. But Jung's most crucial discovery was about the social change these individuals could inspire. If you have had your best ideas during leisure time while others were working hard, comment, "My rest is my research." Jung documented something vital about visionary creatives that clarifies why society fears idle geniuses. He noted that the human personality of the artist is often sacrificed for the benefit of the creative element. Jung observed that a connection to the creative unconscious realm often comes at a significant cost. Visionary individuals frequently experience social alienation or psychological distress because they are channeling content that does not align with conventional social norms. What I call Jung's genius burden theory demonstrates how the idle genius, in Jung's words, speaks to a temporal world from an eternal one. They are translating timeless, archetypal content into a world focused on immediate practical matters. This creates what Jung identified as a fundamental conflict. The genius functions from eternal, universal perspectives, while society demands temporal, individual productivity. The idle genius is not idle. They are struggling to connect 2 entirely different planes of consciousness. Jung noted that this process is often unsettling and intrusive for both the individual and society. The genius cannot simply sever their connection to archetypal content, even when it makes them appear unproductive or impractical to others. But there is one final revelation that connects everything. Jung's research showed that visionary creatives serve a vital function for collective human progress. They translate archetypal content from the collective unconscious into forms that can advance human understanding. What Jung called the visionary artist taps into what he termed primordial images, fundamental patterns of human experience that exist across all cultures and eras. The idle genius accesses these same archetypal layers but applies them to practical problem-solving rather than artistic expression. Jung noted that the most profound and meaningful contributions come from individuals who act as conduits for the collective unconscious. While psychological types create from personal experience, visionary types channel transpersonal content that addresses universal human needs and possibilities. This explains why the insights of idle geniuses often seem impossibly advanced for their time. They are not just thinking ahead. They are accessing archetypal patterns that represent humanity's deepest potential, irrespective of current cultural constraints. Jung believed that suppressing visionary individuals represents humanity's unconscious denial of its own evolutionary potential. The idle genius maintains a connection to archetypal wisdom that could guide collective progress toward higher levels of consciousness. But Jung believed this patience serves not just individual fulfillment but collective advancement toward more sophisticated levels of consciousness. Jung predicted that idle geniuses who preserve their authentic development despite social pressure will eventually be seen as pioneers who safeguarded humanity's connection to its deepest intelligence during a period of collective productivity obsession. What I call Jung's resolution framework proposed that idle geniuses serve humanity best not by conforming to current expectations but by preserving their authentic consciousness until society evolves to value their contributions. This demands extraordinary patience and self-trust, as the validation they need may not arrive for decades. But Jung believed this patient dedication serves collective progress toward more sophisticated levels of consciousness. Building on Jung's predictions, I believe idle geniuses who maintain their authentic development despite social pressure will eventually be recognized as pioneers who protected humanity's connection to its deepest intelligence. And the evidence for this prediction is already appearing. Comment if you are ready to trust your natural rhythm instead of society's timeline. I trust my process, not their pressure. Jung's predictions about idle geniuses are being confirmed by modern neuroscience and technological trends that demonstrate his theories were decades ahead of their time. Neuroscience confirmation. Recent brain imaging studies reveal that breakthrough insights happen during default mode network activation, exactly the brain state that idle geniuses naturally access during apparent leisure. Technology evolution. As AI manages routine tasks, human value is shifting toward precisely the kind of creative insight that unconscious processing offers, validating Jung's prediction that visionary consciousness would grow increasingly valuable. Cultural shifts. Remote work, flexible schedules, and outcome-based assessments are creating environments where the approaches of idle geniuses can finally be acknowledged and rewarded. What I find remarkable about Jung's foresight is how he predicted that the future would belong to those who can access intelligence beyond individual thought. The idle genius protects this access while society learns to appreciate what it has long ignored. Jung's emphasis on the play instinct and fantasy as the raw material for all creative work is now being confirmed by research showing that unstructured mental time leads to breakthrough innovations. The transformation Jung foresaw is occurring now. The question is whether you will recognize your part in it before society catches up to what Jung knew decades ago. Remember Jung's shocking discovery that society's most feared individual is not the criminal, the rebel, or the activist, but the person everyone calls idle who secretly holds world-changing ambitions. After decades of observing these individuals, Jung saw they represent something far more significant than alternative personality types. They are examples of what he called visionary creatives, individuals functioning at the highest level of human consciousness, accessing collective intelligence and translating archetypal content into practical insights. Jung's research showed that what society labels as idleness is actually what he termed the play instinct acting from inner necessity, the mind's most sophisticated creative mechanism, operating at unconscious levels most people never access. The idle genius is not failing at productivity. They are succeeding at what Jung called visionary creativity. Most importantly, Jung discovered that visionary individuals act as conduits for the collective unconscious, channeling what he called primordial images that address universal human potential. While everyone else optimizes existing systems, they preserve a connection to archetypal wisdom that allows for transcendent breakthroughs. This is why society fears them, not because they are unproductive, but because they prove that everything we have been taught about success might be flawed. They demonstrate that the most valuable contributions come from what Jung called autonomous, self-activating processes that cannot be forced, scheduled, or optimized. Your apparent idleness is not a character defect that needs fixing. You are what Jung identified as a visionary type, operating from levels of consciousness that access what he called the universal, transpersonal layer of the psyche. Your insights arise from the same archetypal sources that Jung documented in history's greatest creative breakthroughs. Jung noted that visionary individuals often pay a high price. The human personality is often sacrificed for the benefit of the creative element. Your struggle with conventional productivity is not a personal failure. It is evidence that you are channeling content from what Jung called a world eternal into a temporal world. Jung believed that idle geniuses who maintain their authentic development despite social pressure become bridges between humanity's current constraints and its archetypal potential. You are not just developing your own consciousness. You are preserving access to what Jung called the collective unconscious, which could transform how our species confronts its greatest challenges. Society fears the idle genius because they are proof that human potential functions through what Jung called the play instinct rather than forced exertion. Your idleness is not your weakness. It is your connection to what Jung identified as humanity's deepest creative source. And that connection might be precisely what humanity needs for its next evolutionary advancement. If this revelation about Jung's visionary creative theory resonates with you, wait until you discover what Jung called the dangerous awakening, when visionary individuals finally cease to hide their archetypal insights and begin to reshape the world around them. That is a story that will completely alter how you perceive your own potential. Subscribe for more insights into Jung's authentic theories about human potential that could revolutionize how you understand not just individual development but humanity's collective evolution toward the levels of consciousness Jung documented in his groundbreaking work on the creative mind. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.